What if one of the most powerful, completely free, and most dramatically underutilized tools for boosting male energy, drive, and testosterone has been available to you every single day, sitting just outside your front door? And most men are spending less than 15 minutes a day using it. What if the fatigue you carry through your afternoons, the low drive that follows you through your weeks, the hormonal decline that you have been attributing to aging or stress or diet, what if a significant part of it traces back to something as fundamental as not getting enough sunlight? Because today, we are going to talk about something that sounds almost too simple to be powerful, and yet the biology behind it is extraordinary. Sun exposure and its direct, documented effects on male energy, drive, testosterone, and the entire hormonal cascade that determines how a man feels and performs. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what sunlight does inside your body at the hormonal and cellular level, the specific benefits that adequate sun exposure produces for men, the real side effects and risks of both too little and too much, how to prevent those risks, who needs to be most careful, and precisely how to use sun exposure as a daily hormonal optimization tool. Stay with me, because the biology of what sunlight does to a man's hormonal system is one of the most remarkable stories in human physiology. I'm Dr. Christine Rodriguez, and this is Men's Vitality Hub. This channel exists to give men like you authentic, valid knowledge about your health, so you can make real, informed decisions that actually change how you feel. Real biology, honest science, practical guidance. That is what we are here for. Let's go deep. Here is exactly what this video is going to give you. Stay for every section, because together they form a complete picture that will change how you think about every sunny day for the rest of your life. First, I'm going to explain what sunlight actually does inside your body at the biological and hormonal level, the multiple mechanisms through which sunlight influences male energy and drive. Then, I'm going to walk you through the specific, documented benefits for testosterone, energy, mood, and performance. Then, I am going to be completely honest about the side effects and the risks, because both insufficient sun exposure and excessive unprotected exposure carry real consequences. Then, I am going to show you exactly how to prevent those risks. Then, I am going to tell you which men need to be most thoughtful about sun exposure. And finally, the complete, step-by-step practical protocol for using sun exposure as a daily hormonal optimization tool. Every section matters. Let's start with the biology. Sunlight is not a single thing. It is a spectrum of radiation, from ultraviolet at one end to infrared at the other. And different wavelengths of that spectrum interact with different biological systems in different ways. Understanding which wavelengths do what inside the body is the foundation for understanding why sunlight has such profound effects on male hormonal health. The first and most hormonally significant wavelength is UVB radiation. When UVB rays contact the cholesterol in your skin cells, specifically a molecule called 7-dehydrocholesterol, they trigger a photochemical conversion that produces pre-vitamin D3, which then travels to the liver and kidneys to be converted into calcitriol, the active hormonal form of vitamin D. As we discussed in depth in our vitamin D video, vitamin D functions as a steroid hormone that directly activates testosterone synthesis in the Leydig cells of the testes, modulates SHBG levels, inhibits aromatase activity, and regulates mitochondrial energy production. Every minute of effective UVB exposure is a minute of natural vitamin D synthesis, the most bioavailable, most sustained, and most hormonally complete form of vitamin D production available to the human body. The second critical wavelength is blue spectrum light. the short-wave, high-energy visible light that is most concentrated in the morning sky. When blue-spectrum light enters the eyes and reaches the specialized photoreceptors in the retina, the intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, it sends a direct signal to the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus, the master clock of the circadian rhythm. This signal does three things simultaneously. It triggers the cortisol awakening response that activates the body's energy systems for the day. It stimulates serotonin production in the brain, the neurochemical that governs mood, motivation, and the sense of purposeful engagement that men call drive. And it sets the timing for melatonin production that evening, which determines the depth and quality of that night's sleep. Inadequate morning blue spectrum light exposure means a weaker cortisol awakening response, lower daytime serotonin, and delayed or disrupted melatonin production, a hormonal cascade that produces exactly the low-energy, flat mood, and poor sleep that so many men experience as their daily reality. The third wavelength is near-infrared light, the warm, penetrating radiation that constitutes a large portion of direct sunlight. Near-infrared light penetrates several centimeters into body tissue, where it interacts with cytochrome C oxidase, a protein in the mitochondrial membrane that plays a central role in ATP production. Research has shown that near-infrared light stimulation of cytochrome C oxidase improves mitochondrial efficiency, increases cellular ATP output, and reduces oxidative stress within cells. For men whose energy is limited by mitochondrial inefficiency, a common contributor to chronic fatigue that we have discussed extensively on this channel, the mitochondrial stimulation of regular near-infrared exposure through sunlight is a form of cellular energy enhancement that no supplement fully replicates. The fourth mechanism is the direct skin-based testosterone signal. A study published in the journal Cell Reports documented something remarkable. UVB exposure to the skin directly stimulates testosterone production through a pathway that does not require vitamin D as an intermediate. The researchers found that P53, a protein activated in skin cells by UV exposure, directly enhances the production of luteinizing hormone, which then signals Leydig cells to produce testosterone. This skin-to-testes hormonal pathway is a newly characterized mechanism that explains why sun exposure produces testosterone benefits that are partially independent of vitamin D levels, meaning even men with adequate vitamin D status show additional testosterone benefits from direct sun exposure. Now let's talk about the specific, documented benefits of adequate sun exposure for male energy, drive, and hormonal health. The first benefit is testosterone elevation through multiple simultaneous pathways. The UVB-driven vitamin D synthesis, the direct P53-LH testosterone pathway, and the sleep quality improvement that circadian anchoring through morning light produces, all three mechanisms converge to support testosterone production in men who get regular, adequate sun exposure. A study published in the journal Clinical Endocrinology found a strong seasonal variation in men's testosterone levels, with levels measurably higher in the summer months when sun exposure is greatest, and lower in the winter months when UVB availability is minimal. This seasonal pattern directly reflects the hormonal impact of UV exposure on the male hormonal system. The second benefit is serotonin-driven mood elevation and sustained drive. Serotonin, the neurotransmitter most associated with mood stability, emotional resilience, and the sense of purposeful engagement that men experience as drive, is synthesized in the brain in direct response to blue spectrum light exposure. Research has documented that men who spend time outdoors in natural light show higher serotonin levels in the brain compared to men who spend the same amount of time indoors under artificial light. The practical experience of this is familiar to almost every man. The feeling of being outside on a clear, sunny day, the sense of energy and optimism that comes with it, the way motivation seems to return, and problems seem more manageable. This is not psychological. It is neurochemical. It is serotonin responding to sunlight exactly as evolution designed it to. The third benefit is cortisol rhythm optimization. Morning sunlight exposure, specifically within the first 30 minutes of waking, amplifies and sharpens the cortisol awakening response, producing a stronger, cleaner cortisol peak in the morning that then falls more decisively through the day. This optimized cortisol rhythm does two things for testosterone. First, it produces better afternoon and evening cortisol decline, creating more hormonal space for testosterone activity during the hours when cortisol should be low. Second, it produces better evening melatonin release and deeper overnight sleep, which drives more robust LH pulsing and testosterone production during the night. The man who gets morning sunlight consistently wakes up with better testosterone every morning as a cumulative result. The fourth benefit is dopamine stimulation, the neurochemical of motivation, reward, and goal-directed behavior. Research has shown that sun exposure stimulates dopamine release in the brain through multiple pathways, including direct retinal light stimulation of dopaminergic pathways and the indirect dopamine boost from serotonin elevation. For men whose drive and motivation have been diminished by hormonal decline, seasonal light deprivation, or the cumulative flatness of chronic indoor living, the dopamine restoration of regular sun exposure produces a return of the motivated, purposeful energy that men often describe as feeling like themselves again. The fifth benefit is nitric oxide release from sun-exposed skin. Ultraviolet light triggers the release of nitric oxide from stores in the skin into the bloodstream. Nitric oxide is a powerful vasodilator. It relaxes blood vessel walls, improves circulation throughout the body, reduces blood pressure, and enhances oxygen and nutrient delivery to muscles, the brain, and the testes. Research published in the Journal of Investigative Dermatology documented significant nitric oxide release into the bloodstream following UV skin exposure, with measurable cardiovascular and circulatory effects. For men whose physical energy and sexual function are limited by suboptimal circulation, which is far more common than most men realize, the nitric oxide release of regular sun exposure provides a meaningful circulatory enhancement that supports both physical stamina and sexual performance. Still with me? Good. Because now I need to be completely honest about the side effects and the risks. Because both insufficient sun exposure and excessive unprotected exposure carry real consequences that men need to understand. The first side effect of insufficient sun exposure is the cumulative hormonal cost of vitamin D deficiency and circadian disruption. As we covered in our vitamin D video, the majority of men are functionally vitamin D insufficient, and the hormonal consequences include suppressed testosterone, impaired mitochondrial energy production, disrupted sleep, weakened immune function, and increased risk of depression. This is the most widespread and most damaging side effect of the modern indoor lifestyle, and it operates silently over years before most men recognize the connection. The second side effect of insufficient morning light is circadian dysregulation, the misalignment of the internal biological clock that governs every timed hormonal event in the body. Men who spend their mornings indoors under artificial light do not receive the circadian anchoring signal their hypothalamus requires to set the precise timing of cortisol, testosterone, serotonin, melatonin, and the dozens of other timed hormonal processes that determine daily energy, mood, and recovery. The result is hormonal timing that drifts. Cortisol peaks at the wrong time. Melatonin comes too late. Sleep is fragmented. and the entire daily hormonal cascade performs below its potential. The third side effect, and this one comes from the opposite direction, is the skin damage and skin cancer risk of excessive, unprotected sun exposure during peak UV hours. Prolonged, unprotected exposure to midday sun, particularly for men with lighter skin tones, increases the risk of sunburn, chronic skin damage, and, over a lifetime of excessive exposure, skin cancer. This risk is real and must be managed, but the solution is intelligent sun exposure, not complete sun avoidance, which produces its own set of severe hormonal and health consequences. The fourth side effect of excessive midday sun exposure is acute cortisol elevation from the physiological stress of heat and sunburn. Sunburn is an inflammatory injury. It triggers a cortisol response that directly suppresses testosterone and impairs recovery. The goal of sun exposure for hormonal optimization is not tanning or burning. It is calibrated, appropriate exposure that delivers the hormonal benefits without the inflammatory cost. Now, how do you prevent every one of these side effects while accessing the full hormonal benefit of sun exposure? The first prevention strategy is timing your sun exposure intelligently. Morning sunlight, within the first 30 to 60 minutes of waking, provides the strongest circadian anchoring signal and the serotonin and cortisol awakening benefits with minimal UV intensity, as the sun's angle in the early morning produces primarily blue spectrum visible light with lower UVB intensity than midday. 5 to 10 minutes of outdoor morning light exposure, without sunglasses, produces maximum circadian and neurochemical benefit with minimal UV risk. For UVB-driven vitamin D synthesis, midday sun, when the sun is high enough in the sky to produce UVB radiation, is required. The optimal window for vitamin D synthesis is between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. in most locations during the months when UVB is available. During this window, 15 to 30 minutes of exposure on large skin surface areas, arms, legs, back, without sunscreen, is sufficient to produce meaningful vitamin D synthesis in men with lighter skin tones. Men with darker skin tones require longer exposure, 30 to 60 minutes, to produce the same amount of vitamin D. After this targeted vitamin D synthesis window, apply broad-spectrum sunscreen to protect against the cumulative DNA damage of prolonged UVB exposure. The second prevention strategy is never allowing sunburn. Sunburn is not the goal and is not part of any intelligent sun exposure protocol. Sunburn is skin damage. It triggers inflammatory cortisol responses that suppress testosterone and represents DNA damage that accumulates over a lifetime of repeat injuries. The hormonal benefits of sun exposure are produced by calibrated, non-burning exposure. Minutes, not hours, of unprotected midday exposure. Monitor your skin's response and stop or apply sun protection before any redness develops. The third prevention strategy is supplementing vitamin D during the months when UVB is unavailable in your region. As we discussed in our vitamin D video, men living north of the 35th parallel cannot produce vitamin D from sunlight for approximately 5 to 6 months of the year. During these months, a quality vitamin D3 supplement paired with vitamin K2 maintains the hormonal benefits of adequate vitamin D status through the seasons when sunlight cannot provide it. The fourth prevention strategy is using a bright light therapy lamp, 10,000 lux, during winter months or for men whose schedules prevent consistent outdoor morning light exposure. These lamps provide the blue spectrum circadian anchoring signal that morning sunlight delivers, maintaining the serotonin production, cortisol rhythm optimization, and melatonin timing that morning light enables, without requiring outdoor access during the early morning hours. Now, Which men need to be most thoughtful about sun exposure? Men with a personal or family history of melanoma or other skin cancers need to approach sun exposure with medical guidance. The UV benefits must be carefully weighed against their individual skin cancer risk, and their physician should be involved in determining what level of unprotected sun exposure is appropriate for their specific situation. Men with photosensitive skin conditions, including certain autoimmune conditions, specific medications that increase photosensitivity, such as some antibiotics and diuretics, and conditions like lupus that are exacerbated by UV exposure, should consult their physician before increasing sun exposure. As for these men, the inflammatory risk of UV exposure may outweigh the hormonal benefits. Men with very dark skin tones living in northern latitudes face the most significant challenge with sun-based vitamin D synthesis. Their melanin protection requires substantially longer exposure times than lighter-skinned men to produce the same vitamin D yield. And for much of the year, their latitude prevents UVB exposure entirely. These men should prioritize vitamin D supplementation year-round and use morning light exposure for circadian benefits regardless of season. Men who work predominantly night shifts have their entire circadian rhythm inverted. The conventional morning light protocol does not apply to their sleep-wake cycle, and they need to think about light exposure relative to their individual waking time and schedule. For these men, bright light therapy lamps used at the start of their waking period, regardless of clock time, provide the circadian anchoring benefits that outdoor morning light provides for conventional schedules. Now, the complete step-by-step practical protocol for using sun exposure as a daily hormonal optimization tool. Step 1 is the morning light anchor. Every single day, without exception. Within 30 minutes of waking, go outside for 5 to 10 minutes and expose your eyes to natural outdoor light. No sunglasses. Face toward the light source without staring directly at the sun. This practice sets your circadian clock, triggers the cortisol awakening response, stimulates serotonin production, and anchors the melatonin timing that will determine your sleep quality that night. On overcast days, stay outside for 15 to 20 minutes. Cloud cover reduces light intensity but does not eliminate the circadian anchoring signal. This is the single most important daily light practice available to men, and it takes less time than checking your phone in bed. Step 2 is the midday vitamin D window. 3 to 4 times per week during the months when UVB is available in your region. Go outside between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. with significant skin surface area exposed, arms and legs at minimum, back if possible, for 15 to 30 minutes without sunscreen. This targeted vitamin D synthesis window provides the UVB exposure needed to produce meaningful vitamin D, while limiting total UV exposure duration. After this window, apply broad-spectrum SPF 30 or higher sunscreen if you will remain outdoors. On days when the midday window is not possible due to schedule or weather, your supplementation protocol compensates. Step 3 is afternoon outdoor activity when possible. A 20-minute afternoon walk outdoors, in addition to the morning light practice and the midday vitamin D window, provides near-infrared mitochondrial stimulation, additional dopamine and serotonin support, physical movement benefits for testosterone and metabolic health, and a natural cortisol decline support that prepares the hormonal system for the evening and night ahead. Men who can build even one outdoor walk into their afternoon routine are compounding the hormonal benefits of sun exposure in a way that an indoor lifestyle cannot replicate. Step 4 is winter supplementation. From approximately October through March for men in the northern United States, Europe, and other higher latitude regions, when the sun's angle prevents meaningful UVB radiation, take 2,000 to 4,000 IU of vitamin D3 with 100 to 200 micrograms of vitamin K2 MK7 daily. Continue the morning light practice using a 10,000 lux bright light therapy lamp for 10 to 20 minutes at eye level within 30 minutes of waking on days when outdoor morning light is unavailable. This winter protocol maintains the vitamin D and circadian benefits of summer sun exposure through the months when outdoor light cannot provide them. Step 5 is tracking your response over 4 to 6 weeks of consistent implementation. Pay attention to morning energy levels, afternoon mood stability, sleep depth and quality, motivation and drive throughout the day, and physical performance. These are the real-world hormonal markers of improved vitamin D status, optimized cortisol rhythm, and elevated serotonin and dopamine that consistent sun exposure produces. For objective data, a 25-OHD vitamin D blood test before and after 8 weeks of the sun exposure and supplementation protocol will show you exactly what your vitamin D status is doing in response to your efforts. Step 6 is consistency above all else. The circadian, hormonal, and neurochemical benefits of sun exposure are cumulative. They build with consistent daily practice and diminish with inconsistency. The man who steps outside for morning light every day, gets his midday vitamin D exposure 3 to 4 times per week, and takes his winter supplements consistently, is building a hormonal foundation that compounds, week over week, month over month, into the sustained energy, drive, and testosterone that represent what a man's body is actually capable of when given the light inputs it was evolutionarily designed to receive. The sun is not just light. For a man's hormonal system, it is the daily signal that everything is working as it should. The man who steps outside every morning, who faces the light, breathes the air, and gives his circadian clock the signal it needs to set the hormonal cascade for the entire day, that man is doing something that no supplement fully replicates, no drug fully substitutes for, and no indoor lifestyle can compensate for. He is giving his body the most ancient, most fundamental hormonal input available to him. And his testosterone, his energy, his drive, and his mood reflect it every single day. Light is not just energy from the sky. It is the hormonal language your body has been listening to for millions of years. Speak it daily. If this video changed how you are going to think about the sunlight available to you every single day, if you are going to step outside tomorrow morning within 30 minutes of waking and start this protocol, please hit that like button right now and subscribe to Men's Vitality Hub. Every week, this is what we bring you: real science, honest guidance, practical protocols for men who are serious about their hormonal health. And tell me in the comments, how much time do you actually spend outdoors each day right now? Be honest. Drop the number below, because your honesty might be exactly what motivates another man in this community to step outside tomorrow morning and start reclaiming the hormonal benefits that sunlight has been offering him every single day. Thank you for watching. Step outside, face the light. I will see you in the next one.